pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Appreciate you. Emma, can you do a roll call, please? Here.
Alderwoman Clagghorn.
Here.
Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Bennett.
Here.
Alderman Eidman.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Steiner.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll move to approval of tonight's agenda.
We'll get that put together. Probably October, November. I'm not sure when crops come in, but soybeans. We'll get that taken care of and continue that discussion. EV charger was delivered on Tuesday, and asphalt paving work, I thought it was going to start next week. They're milling a number of the areas on Lynn Drive, so the asphalt paving has begun. There's like 3 or 4 small spots, and then up at Kiefer and Lynn, they paved that down for elevation issues, so they can repave that, get the full 2 inches in. So that has started, and they'll keep working on that. They're on Rozier Street. They've made it maybe 50, 60 feet down from Cedar Lane at this point. Still a lot of Rozier to go, but once they complete that, then they're off to Claymont and Oakwood. Rozier Street's the only other street that we need to worry about for paving purposes. So once that's done, all the paving can take place. Questions?
Thank you, Happy. First up, staff reports will be Chief Crump.
Good evening. Pretty basic report this month. Some of the biggest changes in staffing, we've lost 1 officer. His last day is actually today. He's going to the sheriff's department. We have a 2nd officer in the background phases with the sheriff's department as well. But we've been fortunate that we have 2 experienced officers that we're in negotiations with now, one with 13 years and one with 20 years. So we're sitting pretty good with that right now. Grants, we're in the beginning stages of writing another grant through Homeland Security. We're reviewing it now to see which equipment would be best, since we have been awarded the digital radio grant. So we're looking at what equipment would best fit the city. So we'll be writing that. That'll be due sometime in October, and that's a 0 match grant. Other than that, Jura Fed went off with no problems at all this year from the police standpoint.
You talked about 2 replacement officers. Good.
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chief. Steve Wilson from Alliance couldn't be here tonight, but you do have his report in your packet. Read through it.
Are you the acting, Steve?
I don't know if I can act like Steve, but yeah, I can try to answer something.
Had a few more calls this week about the oil water thing. All the questions around that. So I hope we can get this texting thing in place, or a better notification for the people who aren't on. I did have a person contact me, very lengthy, a multiple cancer survivor, with major concerns, and I understand most of the time when there's waterline things, it is mainly bacteria, but, so there's a need to know out there, definitely, and stuff. Second thing is patching of streets. I don't know if any of the rest of you guys hear anything, or I get reminded about it regularly, so I really was hoping Steve was here that we could ask and see when a round of that would take place.
Are you looking at just potholes, or are you looking
Yes.
at yield and patching? So you're talking about potholes.
Well, whatever we can do to fill in some of the areas that are bad.
What are you describing as an open patch? Is that what?
Over patch, if we dug out a water line,
Oh,
some
okay.
work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
just
I-
talking potholes. We did that before, sure said, but if we don't know where the locations of those holes are, we wouldn't have gotten around to it. So as long as people notify us, Steve keeps a list of that, me and Corey work on them. It may be a couple of months before we get to it because of other projects, but
Right.
just keep us informed as to where those locations are and we can get to them.
And I guess the one on 9th Street, Washington and Maple, where they had the big, that one is in to be done, or that can be done.
So that's the contractor's responsibility. That was part of their work that they're supposed to do is patch in any of the areas that they've cut. So even with Rozier, they'll dig out the rock, patch it, and then we'll go through and overlay it. But we're not overlaying 9th Street because we're doing engineering.
Right.
But they're supposed to go back and eventually patch that.
So, but we're dealing with the same contractor that did the water line is doing the overlay for us, right? So hopefully they can,
It sounds like they got 2 crews running there, so that will help us. Once they start the, I don't know, I haven't had a chance to ask about when that would be on the
right? It's just because that's where all the buses go up and turn, and people coming to the stop sign, there's gravel there, it's hard to stop, so,
And one of the things we want is to get the buses and cars on it to compact it.
right,
And then it'd be nice to get a little rain too to also push that down. Because if we don't, then it settles and we end up with Sunday Street. So that's part of it.
sure, thanks.
Happy.
Go ahead, Jim.
Do we still have the pothole hotline number?
Yeah, it's still the phone number of the street shed.
Maybe put that out on Facebook so people can text
Word
it
out.
out. Yeah.
I'll just start texting.
Joe covered it.
Okay, good. We'll put it on Facebook.
I heard that.
Just curious, Alderman Donovan, did they say that they would opt into the text? Did they think that that was a feasible solution?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious.
Yeah, not knowing what, the end result is to do it, so, but I've heard nobody mention anything unfavorable about it.
Good. Good. Okay, with that, we will move to public comments.
Bob Browning, 498 Murphy Street, St. John. I'd just like to update people. The only reason I'm doing this is if something happens to me, I want people to know. Carl Kinski, I'm alleging that he is relentless on his threats to me. He went off in the courtroom, outside the courtroom, and out in the street, on Market Street. With this jingle, the threats. Then over the weekend, somebody spray paints on the side of my house, no makeup. One thing I like to say is, they're lucky I did not catch them doing it, because I'm fed up. I get a letter today from Carl Kinski requesting me to go to his office for a deposition. I'm not going to his office so he can have people say, oh, Bob, it's not me who shot him. I mean, the guy just relentless. I just want people to know they're not stopping. And then I will get on the agenda for new business, the next Alderman meeting about the door. There's another way that can be resolved where you keep the door and just somehow put a wall between the police department and city with another door so nobody can go directly into the police department without being let in. So I got to get that next time, 'cause I'm not on the agenda for that. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any other public comment tonight? Okay. Tonight, we're going to have a public hearing. This is going to allow citizens to comment on the property tax rates proposed to be set by the city of St. Genevieve, a political subdivision. The tax rate shall be set to produce revenues which the budget for the fiscal year 2024 shows to be required in the property tax. We will open this public hearing at 6:10.
Yeah, we got it. It posted. Yeah.
Okay, with that, we will go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:11. And we will move to tonight's consent agenda.
Just so you know, at your seats, you had an updated resolution for the furniture. In discussions with KI, if we pay the installer directly, we'll save about $700. So what we've done is split that cost between the two entities, KI Construction and Creative Business out of Cape Florida. And it's less than what the original amount was on the, for that resolution.
I'll get a correction on one of the minutes. On the budget meeting, budget work session, it talks about the amendment that Alderman Bennett and I proposed. And it says that 36,000 was allocated back to the tourism budget for a part-time tourism staff. I'm happy to have that in there, but our budget doesn't reflect. It shows 18,000 on our budget.
So we talk about time.
Yeah. So if we could maybe make a correction on that work, budget work session
Make a motion to approve it with the,
as,
okay, 18,000 instead of 36,000.
Alderman Donovan, you got something?
Just on one of the other resolutions and stuff for the appointments for the Board of Adjustment, I want to make sure those are not actual to the Board of Adjustment, they're alternates.
Those alternates, Dave, on the report.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that part of the amendment too, or is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Because there's three things to it. Okay, so I think there is a motion on the table to approve the consent agenda with the one adjustment to the minutes from the budget work session, correct?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. Second from Alderman Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Take us to some old business. Tonight, we're going to have a second reading of Bill number 4576. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission municipal agreement for public improvements along Route N.
Second.
Motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4576 now becomes ordinance 4497.
Also have a second reading of Bill number 4577. This is an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri to establish a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain officials.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4577 now becomes ordinance 4498.
Thank you. Second reading for Bill number 4578. This is an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, authorizing a no parking restriction on the south side of Jefferson Street between 3rd and 4th Street.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4578 now becomes ordinance 4499.
Thank you. Lastly, a second reading for Bill number 4579. This is an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, amending Chapter 203 Fire Prevention and Protection of the St. Genevieve Municipal Code as set forth below.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Prince,
Yes.
Alderman Steiger,
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey,
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan,
Yes.
Alderman Bennett,
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4579 now becomes ordinance 4500.
Thank you. Move to new business. This is the first reading for bill number 4580. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission easement for upgrading pedestrian facilities along Route M.
Shoot it, Luke.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
Do you have any discussion on this topic?
No.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this will be a first reading for bill number 4581. This is an ordinance of the city of St. Genevieve levying a tax on the residents of the city for the year 2023.
I had a question, why we are asking for a first and second reading tonight.
This has to be done before September 1st.
I think they got it late. I think Pam received it late from the state.
It's always received late.
Uh,
Always. We always have to do a first and second on this every year.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion for a second reading.
Second? Go ahead.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this will be a second reading for bill number 4581. This is an ordinance of the city of St. Genevieve levying a tax on the residents of the city for the year 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Dan, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Donovan,
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett,
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4581 now becomes ordinance 4501.
Okay. Any other business to discuss tonight? I'd like to bring forward.
I would like to just get some clarification. I think there was somebody inquiring about property on Progress Parkway, in the lot between the churches and the apartments lots. I think there's like a 60-foot strip there. I believe they've approached the city and we're told that there may be some future use for that. I was just kind of hoping to get some clarification on what that future use might be.
So when we swapped the properties, what we were concerned about was in the future, somebody wanting to put in a subdivision, and it may not be within 10, 15, 50 years, who knows? But since Progress Parkway is one of our major collectors, that we would want to have access to that subdivision, or potential access to that subdivision, that would go in behind there because there is no other frontage along for that property. So instead of isolating it, we wanted to create a way to make access to it, or have a second access if it comes from another direction.
My understanding is the owner of the property behind that is the person asking for our 60-foot section. So how are we going to subdivide somebody else's property? Like, those two things would have to happen. So he would have to sell that property to be subdivided and potentially the access to that, correct?
Well, we have the access. I mean, that's our property. So
Right.
when we divided, we left Heisel's duplex side, and then the church took over the rest of it. So we left the 60 feet future use. That would be up to them if they ever make the development. But it was, for future access, we thought it was important to leave that access off Progress Parkway. Without that, then how do you gain access or then be isolated? And we didn't want to isolate. And I don't see it being, it would be a city right of way anyway, if they would dedicate it to the city, so I don't see that as being part of that property in back, or them, purchasing that and using it, or dedicating it in the future. I think that's why we want to keep that for that access, for the future access.
I don't understand what we're accessing though if they own the property behind there.
for the future, for the potential of a subdivision going in. The individual may own it and say they don't want to develop this, but I don't know what's going to happen down the road. It's the same as what we draw on maps saying, here's where we want a future road to go in. You know, we want to make sure we have that thought out and potential for the future to be accessible, and that we're not having to buy right away, or that somebody doesn't have to buy access on another piece of property.
We don't, that property behind it that's privately owned, it's not inside city limits, correct? So we'd have another hurdle of annexing property into the city if it would ever become subdivision.
Well, if they wanted to do subdivision, more than likely they'd friendly annex because they want sewer and water.
Utilities,
Yeah.
and police and,
Yeah.
But that particular piece of property in back of there, it's not landlocked, is it? I mean, that's not their only access to that property is off Progress Parkway.
No, but you would probably want that second access, or they would want access to the park. So we figured that was one way to get access off that property.
I'm struggling with that myself.
But if it's the owner of the property that we are looking at the possibility of a future subdivision going on, and he's the one that's wanting to purchase that right or that 60-foot section in order to give it that same piece of property that we're trying to look out for, wouldn't that go with that property if he ever decided to make a subdivision anyways? So I guess what they're asking for is to buy that section just so that if they were to ever sell it, that they knew that that was part of the deal. And then we don't have to maintain it, right?
Sorry to interrupt. Two issues. One's agent. And secondly, it's real estate. And so we were talking about details about the meetings of real estate in the city. Should probably do that closed session. Certainly on the agenda. I mean, we can talk about it a little bit just to bring up the issue. It's not on the agenda. It's hard to go into a lot of details about it's not.
So we can put it on a work session if you, but this has gone through the planning and zoning and the board of aldermen process to be divided in that way with that purpose in mind. So again, we can talk about it in a work
I'm sorry,
session.
it's been through which phases?
Planning and zoning and board of aldermen, that we had to subdivide those lots for the advanced services to church.
Oh, I see. What's it zoned now? Is it zoned industrial or residential?
No, it's the same as the rest of that neighborhood.
I guess I'll go on and ask that be put on the next work session agenda.
Happy if these boundary lines are accurate, and I know they're not 100%, but it does look like that piece of property is landlocked.
Okay, and then we were accurate when we were thinking.
Any other business? Open the discussion tonight.
Did we ever make a decision on limiting the size of trash trucks? I know nobody was in favor of the citywide trash service, but in an effort to, well, I mean, I've gotten some feedback outside of here, but I mean, I've not gotten anybody that's in favor of it, but I mean, if at the bare minimum, if we can look at limiting the size or the axles of the trash trucks that are accessing our city streets, then
So ask other cities if they've got an ordinance, if anybody has something like that, and I haven't got anything back. So,
either way,
yeah.
okay.
I do know one city talked about it, I'm not sure if they instituted it, but it was with their contractor, that they were gonna restrict the size.
I mean, if we're going down that road, we're gonna probably get an increase in prices. Because they're gonna have to buy new trucks and have more trucks and more traffic. So when we go down this road, I know you guys, some of you are not for a consolidated trash service, but you're actually gonna increase prices, would be my guess. I'm speculating, but if we do a axle restriction or a weight restriction or whatever,
Right.
we're actually gonna be probably raising prices.
But if we're consolidating the trash service, then that is also eliminating the issue that we have. The problem that was brought to me is that there's 3 different trash services going up and down that street that's already littered with potholes throughout a week. So, it's 9 trips up and down the street. So, that was the question.
Yeah.
I'll keep looking, bring back something, I just haven't had anything to look back yet.
Okay. I don't have any others.
All right. If there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Tonight's work session to order. And move to approval of the work session agenda for tonight.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Move to work session item number 1. This is stormwater behind 744 Rozier, also known as Highway M.
So, Mr. Bleckler has requested, apparently in the past, the city had at one time done some work behind his property for stormwater. Even before that, I think they put a stormwater pipe in that ran from the ditch to the backyard. I don't show any easement, but I haven't dug that deep into our archives. But he's requested that we clean out the area and re-rock it as we did before. The thing is, we don't have a stormwater easement behind that property. We generally don't do improvements on private property. We have a sewer easement that's a whopping 6 feet wide. So we wouldn't even be able to get a backhoe in there. It'd have to all be done by hand. So if we were to do something along these lines, because both neighbors are asking the city to do it. So you've got Harry Gage's property, that's the mobile home court, and then Mr. Bleckler and his neighbors that go down Highway M. They want us to get in there, it's silted in, like for us to clean the rocks out. I mean, they're all just covered with dirt at this point. It's just, everything, all the vegetation is rotted.
If we do have an easement, then we put that original off M over to that ditch. I don't know, it's like 50 something foot pipe.
So, does this cause ponding in this area or something?
I think it's backing up. There's
It
a
gets pretty
potential.
flat.
Does
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, as it gets further down that ditch, not these pictures, but if you get down in here, it starts getting pretty flat. And I imagine it probably does. If you get a couple inches of rain. And then it starts running into a bunch of brush down inside there. And
Which is not our brush, or
it'd be close to our, and then there's a big sinkhole, not a sinkhole, but something's causing a cavity down there. So I don't know. There's somebody put a cone down there, a hazard cone.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it was. I took a picture of it, but it's a pretty deep hole. It's like 2 or 3 foot, and I couldn't see. It might be deeper than that, and that's right by that manhole that we've got about halfway down this ditch.
Right, and that we do maintain, you know, those.
We haven't. We need to go out and look at that. But, I mean,
Then there's another pipe underneath the road down here at the lower end of this. Or I'm looking at
no,
this.
the only pipe, it comes off of M Road and goes back to this ditch. That's where this pipe terminates, and then it just free flows. And it used to be probably a little bit more concave, but now all that riprap is so.
Right. So M Road is running parallel to the ditch, this
Yes,
Yes.
section and stuff.
Basically, yeah.
So doesn't this have to go under that road back by Valley Springs Park?
No, there's another one. So it goes down to Valley Spring Road, right, to get back into Troutman's or Hilbert's, and then it goes down that street and another just open ditch, and then there's probably a big 10-inch pipe that goes underneath Troutman's parking lot over to Valley Spring sinkhole.
So
We're
there's
just not
no,
familiar with that area.
Yeah.
there's no easement there, but there's buried utility there. How is that handled?
we have the 6-foot sewer easement.
So, okay.
You talking about the phone
Yeah.
pedestals? They
Yeah.
probably have their own
They
easement.
have their own, yeah, we don't,
Right.
it's not listed on the one that we
Okay.
have, the drawing that we have.
You know, as much as I'm always in favor of helping the homeowners out, you know, we did have a similar thing to this back a while back over in back of where the subway building is, and that whole ditch there was caving in, and we didn't do anything then, and we had in the past, so I'm not sure how we approach these one at a time, or do we?
We probably should have kept Mark here because Mark was the one that advised us not to
Do anything
do
over there?
anything
Right.
because then it does become ours.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying, if we're gonna do this, we would have to get an easement, make it dedicated for stormwater, we would then be responsible for it after that. I mean, we could probably do it temporary, but they're gonna expect it again in the future.
Does that ditch straddle the property line or is it clearly up?
Kind of.
Yeah, most of it's gonna be off into the mobile home court property.
Yeah, I'd say 2 or 3 feet might be. If you get a 10-foot or 12-foot stormwater easement, it'll be 4 or
Right.
5 feet onto probably don't sink onto the homeowner side, and then another 8 to 10 to 12 would be over on Harry's side.
I see these utility poles there. Is that a major line that probably feeds?
Goes out.
It's
You
all
know,
these those houses.
yeah.
It goes
Yeah,
well
seeing
back.
most of those transmission lines, it's a 15-foot easement on either side.
That's their easement, though, not ours.
Right, so can you do one easement over, well, I guess we have with the,
Yeah, the sewer easement was adopted when they did the subdivision. That's how we found that. The others, we haven't seen anything for anything other than that utility for us.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, I think we're gonna have. I mean, it affects a lot of people, and there's probably a fair amount of water and only more coming. I mean, M Road. I don't know what it looks like with a 3-inch rain, but
Happy, do we have any idea what it costs to get those easements? I guess that all has to be surveyed and,
I don't think we would pay anything except $1 and other considerations because we're making an improvement to the property.
yeah.
So I wouldn't offer a cost or offer a stipend for that.
so it would be on the property owners to give us an easement.
At no cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd pay for the survey and the
Right. We do
Legal
all the
work, yeah.
paperwork.
Yeah.
And then it's our equipment and our labor that does it.
Did we, do you have confirmation we did clean it up? When you said that we did?
help.
Yes.
Okay, so we did do it.
We did just,
What's this guy over here?
So what's in this area, Joe? Is that,
That's the backyard of the mobile home park.
no, that's one of the backyards, so of all of them.
That picture is probably taken from right here, looking down this way.
Right.
And you're looking, what you're asking about is all these
You're just not
backyards.
seeing the mobile home.
Yeah, this, and this. So that pipe would be, that's his property right there. And then it goes underground to right here, it comes out here and all that water. And it makes a left, and it comes down here, goes underneath another culvert, and then there's a big pipe that goes across the parking lot. And drops into the Valley Springs area.
So that's where that one pipe is right here.
Yeah, that little tiny little
Ish,
piece
right.
of black right there on M Road. It's right, there's an empty lot right here.
Yeah, because there's some riprap right along M Road there
Yeah.
too and stuff. And looks like there's another
Yeah,
pipe at
that's-
the other end.
That's this right here.
Right.
There's M Road right here.
If we improve this one, are we gonna have to improve the other one all the way
I
down?
think I think it would probably flow fine. I think it would just be this improvement here, because once it makes this corner, I think you would not have to do much there. I'm not sure, I mean,
So Happy, just to be clear, we're being asked to consider whatever construction that would be necessary to make that happen, but then the maintenance of that, does that then become a contract amendment or some kind of change order with Alliance to add that to the property that they maintain? So I
If we
mean,
have to maintain it, I mean, if we're only doing the riprap and cleaning it out every 10 years, then it would just be that to put on a schedule. What we don't want to do is grass cutting like we do at the ditch that runs between Center Drive and St. Genevieve Drive. It runs along the subway. And we have to maintain that. We actually have to cut the grass again. That's not the intention of this. That's not the request either.
yeah.
The request is just to clean it out.
So Joe, do you know if this is actually backed up into anybody's basements? I know the mobile homes don't have them, but is this actually backed up in any?
That, I do not know.
The ditches along M Road,
That
on
would
both
too.
sides of the highway, actually, if it doesn't drain properly.
Yeah.
It has got into the apartments across the street.
Yeah, it backs up pretty good on the other side, but I don't know if that's a product of this.
The 752 has a walkout
Yeah.
or a garage. It's at grade. They're probably the lowest that's in that whole stretch of homes. They're the closest to ever having water be close.
So how are we going to get back there to maintain it? We don't have a right of way or.
It's part of what we'd have to access. It's part of what we'd have to request.
I'm not comfortable making a decision without Mark's input.
I agree.
I think we need to move forward with it though, find out, what he said, but I think it probably has to be done.
Then you're setting a precedent of.
And I think all the
Man,
property.
stormwater, I mean,
What's that? All the property owners has equipment that could do this, correct?
That's the one that called me. That's why
he doesn't.
He said no, and we went down and looked at it with it.
He says no, he doesn't have the equipment, or no, he doesn't want to do it.
No, he does not want to do it.
Okay.
It's his property. Well, not all of it. So.
with all those utilities there and everything. Before you do anything, you're gonna have to get location. Looks like there's electric, telephone, maybe gas.
I mean, anybody's gonna have to do that. And if you've got experience around that type of, those types of issues, you know what you're looking for.
But if we did it, we would ensure it got done correctly. I do see some merit in that.
Nobody's got a rough cost estimate. Nobody can wag a figure of what we could spend on that though.
We haven't gotten that far into it.
You could probably be down there for 3 days, So, I mean,
That's pretty nice.
But, if they're asking to riprap it, how are you gonna get in there with dump trucks, rock, and backhoe? I don't know if any one of these own this empty lot here, this number 13, but, or if you can get off of this road back here, I don't know.
Molecular owns 13. Yeah, so Public Works has looked at this. Their idea is to come in off Dante, one of the empty trailer lots, access it and clean it out that way. That's how they would get it.
And that property owner did call me and said he, would help with what he could on the project. But probably, I'm sure, including access.
I'd like to have a ballpark figure first of all, and then possibly have Mark.
So is that the consensus? We want to get an idea of what cost would look like and then get council opinion on that. Okay. We'll move to work session item number 2. This is the sidewalk replacement at Tri-County Feed.
So Mr. Vioxx has contacted both David Bova and myself, explained what his concerns are. His preference is that we not pave or not redo that sidewalk. However, we look at it as a safety issue that needs to be taken care of. So he did present some issues that we think need to be discussed. And one of them is he had talked to Randy Rosica. Randy talked about the bridge going in 2025. And that David contacted Chris Crocker with MoDOT to find out what they are considering the area that they're going to need to put in the new bridge, what kind of distance it would be from existing to where they would end up. And they're about 100 feet into what would be the new sidewalk area.
So you're talking from the bridge out 100 feet?
So you're looking at going to the first utility pole back to the south. So that was he brought that up, brought a right-of-way issue up, and the fact that he says that MoDOT and the city use his parking lot to turn around in with the salt trucks, and that's damaged and torn up. The city has paved up to the edge of it, that's damaged and torn up, because the water goes across it, so that's deteriorated. So I wanted to bring this to the board because we'll move forward with it. Question is, and I have discussed this with Mark, is if the board wants to do the work. Mr. Vioxx says he isn't going to pay for it. He isn't going to give us money when we send it to him. So we go on as a lien. We could either hold that, we could put the lien on the property, and then you can go back later after the bridge went in and reduce that lien amount. Because you've already looked at the fact that, yeah, there is about 20 feet of right of way for the railroad right of way. That isn't his responsibility, it would be the railroad. So that would be 20 feet we would take off and figure out how to get that back. Or we wouldn't worry about that. But I think he does have a case with the fact that the bridge would go in and tear it out. And I hate to put in a new sidewalk and then have it torn out. Sounds wasteful, but that is the worst section of sidewalk in town and one of the more highly traveled areas. So kind of stuck between the rock and the hard place.
Happy, what I'm wondering, I don't know, might be a question for Dave and stuff, if we just go to our normal specs there on that sidewalk, that truck traffic is not going to support that because he does have trucks in and out of there regularly.
I think we estimated 6 inches thick for that.
So we would increase the specs for that area.
We do that with all driveways. That's already figured in.
But I mean, a driveway with a car is different than a driveway with a heavy truck.
And it's still, well, I mean, if you want to go up to 8 inches, but yeah, it's still 6 inches is what you have as spec for a city street.
Him being a business and that being, are we gonna, then if we do the work, are we gonna pick how much driveway entrance we put versus sidewalk with curb.
I mean, it almost looks like it's all entrance.
I know.
So it would be set down a little, but you have it as where it would ramp up into that
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah. And I understand his complaint about MoDOT and even probably our trucks sometimes turning around there. We had that empty lot across from City Hall. I don't know how we encourage them to use our parking lot to turn around in, but
They have to cross the bridge.
that's true.
So is this an issue that has to be addressed now, or can we table it till
More reason why they
we know more as far as the bridge?
Their
Or,
specs so that they can drive across.
I think you know of a known hazard, and you're potentially opening yourself up for a question of who's responsible if something happens.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I apologize. What was your question? I'm sorry.
if we could just table it until we have, more information on the bridge and this whole flap grant to pay for this bridge in 2025, I mean, a lot of questions with grants and timeframes and bridge design, and I mean, there could just be delays and,
I think that's the other part of his request is we don't know exactly the footprint of
right.
how they're going to repair it, how it's going to, I guess, how those sidewalks will feed into the new bridge.
Yeah, because that's what, 218 feet at $67 a foot if we have to pay for it.
Would they allow for any grant funding for that portion and just do a preemptive preparatory concrete work for the bridge?
I don't, because it hasn't been designed, I would say no.
Okay.
Knowing the way most federal grants are, yeah, you're talking 2025, but construction isn't going to start that day,
Right.
January 1st. It'll have to get drafted, drawn, back and forth, getting things lined out with the plans, and then eventually contracting. And, if you look at our TAP grant on St. Mary's, we're just into the PS&E part of that project now, and we've been doing this a year or 2 years. So we wouldn't be looking at construction for that until next year or maybe the year after. So most of the time, when you start a grant process, it's about 3 years.
Are there any temporary repairs to that sidewalk that can be made without replacing the whole thing?
So it is totally damaged. Yeah.
Well, it's unfortunate. It seems almost frivolous to me, though, to do that without, like, we should wait for the bridge construction.
I mean, you could do
But now
150
we're
foot of it.
same issue in front of City Hall, right? We replace that sidewalk, that's gonna be affected too, right? The new bridge.
Probably, because I know they want to change the angle, but again, we wanted to make sure that everything was to spec. We have to be demonstrators. We have to be very responsible.
I'd say in the grand scheme of things, 150 foot of concrete isn't gonna break the city or be the most wasteful thing we've ever spent money on.
Well, I mean, if we only do 150 of it out of the 200, I mean,
I don't think you can do a portion of it. You're going to have to do the whole thing.
Well, there again, that 200 feet of concrete is probably not the most wasteful thing we've ever spent money on.
if we have to cut off 30 or 40 of it,
15 grand.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of wasting 15 grand.
Yeah.
You'll hear what I'm
but we're not
saying.
going to waste all of it. We'll just cut
Right.
off some of it. I mean, the
But if somebody trips and falls, we're at a $15,000 liability claim anyway, so. Or are we? It's not a
It's
city
not our
sidewalk.
property.
Would that be?
I'm not making light of that, but
The
plenty of
Oxus.
people have tripped and fell right there, I'm sure.
Well, people are walking in the street too.
Yeah, we're not
I don't know.
sitting around waiting for the first
I don't know,
accident.
we have had, I haven't heard anything, but, is there, I mean, I know it's open now, and it's just not as designated a driveway, like, when we did the one into the City Hall parking lot, there is a specific dimension there that says you can drive in that area, as in most entrances, but So do we have to allow that whole area to be open?
That's what Alderman Steiger asked earlier. Just having that slope and the access there as opposed to a sidewalk, but still if the 6 inches would suffice.
I mean, if we're forcing that on him, does he get to pick how much is entranceway versus traditional sidewalk?
We can do that. We can discuss it with him, but if you look at how most people come in for the mulch, I mean, it's a parallel kind of access.
Yeah.
So
It starts at this time.
it's all being
Oh, yeah.
utilized
Oh,
as
yeah.
drive.
So,
Well, I'm
right through here would be,
definitely another entrance and then another big entrance up there.
Well, I was just looking for, was there a way to limit the area that the trucks would be driving over to possibly damage and sidewalk that would not be damaged, that he might reconsider and say, okay, I'm not paying for the whole thing, but I'll pay for 60 feet of it or something that
What are you looking for tonight? Are you looking for a
Do-
recommendation?
Well, no, we want to move forward with the reconstruction. We'll talk to Mr. Knox and then we'll go through it. But the question is, are you willing to go ahead and either we can decide this later, but it's not going to be that long down the road. Hold the lien, we'll bill him, he won't pay, we hold the lien. Because, if you want to, there may be issues of working with him as well with the bridge installation or where vehicles can park. We want to be friendly neighbors. But again, we can work that stuff out, but we can issue the lien and then go back later and reissue it, or, we waive the first one and then go back and put the next one on at the smaller amount. And it would just be that amount that is undamaged, that doesn't get replaced by the bridge. Because I didn't feel as staff, we could make that decision on our own. Because the board has to approve the liens that replace them.
I think it's got to be done.
I would be okay with holding off on the lien until we know how much we're going to bill them, just bill them once and get the work
Yeah.
done. As long as we remember to actually put the lien on.
Right, that's, I'll put it in the calendar. If everybody's good with that, we'll go down that path and follow it that way, it's fine. I don't mind just holding it, putting it, setting it back, but just, again, so we remember.
Everybody have a motion on that?
No, it's,
It's more or less a consensus. Okay.
Is there anybody not okay with that, I guess? Okay.
not real thrilled about it.
Yeah.
So,
the holding part or the replacement.
No, if we're gonna do it, my vote is to hold it. And if we forget it, too bad.
Yeah, I think that's what we, I think that's.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's exactly,
Yeah.
that's what we're thinking. Go ahead and proceed with it. Let's hold only, see what MoDOT does, and then reasonable. Yep.
Just as a curiosity, Happy, I know there was 4 other properties we were going to be holding on also, or basically we were going to be putting liens. Do we know what that amount is, dollar amount?
You know what the dollar amount on those properties that we've done before, that we've accomplished so far?
I don't have the bill from Mr. Bills yet, but it should approximate $13,000. Mr. Box's was a large portion of the amount I told you about.
Right. So this $67 a foot does cover the heavier 6-inch concrete stuff. Okay.
Concrete's cheap, I guess.
Okay, take us to work session item number 3, and that's going to be the final budget presentation.
Can I ask a goofy question real fast? Is there's some cost difference between asphalt and concrete? Would it make sense to do that last 100 feet in asphalt, just build up the base and do that in asphalt, knowing it's gonna come back out?
issue is the,
Is the truck traffic going across it, but it's no different than a city street.
because asphalt tends to sink faster than concrete. Concrete is just a more stable. And
All right,
it's just-
but knowing that it's gonna be torn back out, are we that concerned about that?
I like your idea.
Yeah, but can our contractor do asphalt?
Our city.
We have to do it. We would have to do
Oh,
it.
that's
right.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
We'll
just
consider-
on that 100 feet or whatever that we know is gonna come back out anyway.
I think the issue is you don't have then a concrete abutment like you do, you don't have a curb and gutter. You're just pulling it up against asphalt. So that could cause problems. I don't think that,
You almost still have to have the concrete on the outside edge.
yeah, you still need it. Like, yeah, in that case, you need a curb and gutter to be able to maintain that asphalt because otherwise it will shift. So we'll look at it. I'll talk to
At
Steve
least,
about
at
it.
least see what the
Yeah.
cost would be on that, maybe.
You know, in a lot of
If we're
places,
gonna be
that
wasteful.
sidewalk is below the pavement already.
Right, and we want to get it above a little bit. Well, with truck traffic on top of asphalt, usually, you know,
I don't know that there's any of the huge trucks going down there on
not that far.
the mulch side, other than the trailers coming to get mulch, but,
Back to
you know,
truck.
most of the turning around and everything is gonna be, maybe, I would assume it's, closer to the train track where people turn around, but I don't know that.
So I know it doesn't meet our sidewalk specification in the code.
Right.
So you're then pulling it out of the code and trying to do something creative. Let us look at it. I'm not real confident.
Just throwing it out.
Yeah.
I don't like,
So
so
what
throw it back.
Go ahead.
No, I was just,
What about the section that's on the railroad right away?
What about-
that I think we're gonna have to keep.
Is that still our sidewalk?
Because I don't know where our right of way starts and theirs ends, so to speak.
I
We'll
think
get
it's,
with them, but I'm thinking 20 feet is not a big amount that we'll have to.
yeah, it should be 25 from the center of the roadway of the railroad
Right.
usually.
Right.
Because if you look on that map, it shows it wider. They're either 25 or 50.
Yeah, because across the street, it's huge. But
Yeah, it's
that
narrow on
side,
one
it's
side and wide on the other.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean.
They have the smaller one there. I think it's the 25.
Yeah.
Easement. They don't have the 50 there.
I mean, it's easier just to not worry about the railroad part of it, get it done, and try to get money from the railroad.
Yeah.
It's all Joe's idea. Joe should get the credit.
All right, we'll go ahead and move to work session item number 3 then. That is the final presentation of the budget.
Here's the final version, unless you amend it tonight, and we come back with another final version. I've got some updated budgets in the middle of the table. This is the updated budget overview. We stay at 51%. As we move the monies around and did a little horse trading at the last meeting, bringing in 18,000 for an assistant, and then taking away the copier and the flock cameras from the police department. It balanced out. I think you guys saw that when you were talking about it. So it balances out at 51%. Our final number would be 1.242 million at the end of the year. And then in the enterprise dedicated funds, we really didn't do any changes there. And then they don't go between each other. I think our end numbers are still in decent shape, except for the water, which we want to see that go up next year as the year goes on. But otherwise, we've got projects to do. We have projects that were listed in the large capital expense sheet that you got. Filled all that in. I hope I got it correct. If not, take a look at it. If there's any other discussion.
Concerning the flock cameras and stuff, I see we didn't put it in, but I thought we were leaving that money in that we didn't use this year. We were going to leave it in next year's budget.
It was just in the cash carry amount.
And-
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we
Because
don't.
it would have been unexpended this year.
Yeah, so that's in your overall amount. So,
Right.
so we weren't gonna budget for those, even if we didn't spend it this year.
I know in doing a little research on them, and I didn't totally do that before we talked about them the first time, but I hope we can definitely talk about it soon in the future because there is an advantage of time there of catching somebody.
And I also say, I think our partners in the sheriff's office are also looking at doing that. The county is looking at expanding their
Okay,
rates.
we'll talk about that, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So,
And this doesn't need any motion or anything for tonight. It'll just be
No, so-
for consideration.
what we'll do is bring the budget ordinance comes at the first September meeting for first reading, and then second reading of the second meeting. And those numbers will be reflected in the spreadsheets that we put out.
Happy you talked about additional, once we get past this 550 on City Hall, you talked about additional money we need to spend there, something about the facade or a parking lot or,
I would love to do both, yeah, do something with the exterior of the building.
But those are in future budgets, correct?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the asphalt, especially on the south side, the asphalt needs to be redone. And then we can look at asphalting that gravel lot, or we can leave it as is. But I think once we improve the interior, we know the roof's in good shape, we had that checked this year. But the exterior, if we paint it, or if we do something else with the brick, I mean, I think the front facade's gonna need to be changed a little bit to just improve it, just to make it look a little more inviting.
I just don't want to get into the future of spending money every year on City Hall that we don't make a more effort on the city streets and stuff, that we can get some of this stuff taken care of that so badly needs addressed with our city streets.
Yeah, I think we'll have money next year if you want to assign some general fund money to city streets. I think there will be some available. If I'm looking at it correctly.
And I think aesthetic of the building versus functionality of the parking lot are two different things.
Functionality needed to be addressed.
You have to maintain your parking lot, and, it's no different than any other business. Like I said, aesthetic is one thing, but,
Right.
so, yeah, I don't disagree with you.
But functionality of the building was critical.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And the exterior doesn't have to be done next year. I mean, that's, I think, just is something down the road to make an improvement.
Yeah.
Because I've already looked at trying to put another sign out there, not that thing, to just a little better, a little more that's in an old drawing that David brought to me, that just makes it look like a historic
City
type
Hall.
sign.
Yeah,
Yeah,
More appropriate.
yeah.
inviting. All right,
Any other questions?
thank you, guys.
Thank you all for getting through the budget process. Not an easy.
Any other business to discuss? Part of the work session?
Over.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn.